It's Halloween! Time for me to do the silly Halloween voice and write about the figure in a vaguely dark and macabre tone. Ooh! And honestly, the Transformers character who fits the mold of the Halloween video is very rare. An endangered species, if you would. But I can't think of any character more terrifying, more ghastly, than one whose name makes me think he's straight out of that most horrific piece of Transformers media. Kiss players. That corner of our community that all sane members know to fear its dark and tainted touch, lest it twist their minds to their breaking points. It's versus 4-pack Squeezeplay, who isn't actually from Kiss Players. That is the name he had in America, even though that's the most English-sounding bullshit I've ever heard. It's apparently a type of baseball play? Okay. Did it have to sound like a sex crime? But first, your likes. Please give and maybe subscribe. In robot mode, there are a desperate few figures as void of presence as Squeezeplay, a visage so plain as to be painful, like a forgotten shadow in the background, never meant to catch the eye, to be lost in the crowd because the more important actors are center stage, an existence solely for set dressing. He's blue and purple and gray, a color scheme that dies in the eyes, premature aggressive depigmentation, an untreatable disease that lets all who see him know he's not long for this world. Even his headmaster stats are completely blacked out, like these were his talents in life, but now you just have the grim reminder of who he once was, before the nothing swept him away. But even were his colors as vibrant as a living bot, his creaky, sickly joints would make his passing clear on their own, as he has all the arm strength of the already deceased, and everything about him feels wrong. To be fair, his father also lived a hollow life, twisted and incomplete. Yes, this was made from the bones of Titan's Return Mindwipe, one of Transformers' more ghoulish characters and one of its more tragic figures. No version of him was ever given the care it needed to live life to its fullest. Each one allowed to waste away and atrophy into a tortured mess barely able to stand, and his putrid progeny is no exception. Someone in the 4-packs is always left to rot, and it seems like this one's most interesting member was that victim this time. Not interesting in this mode, mind you. More the death of interest here, but we will get into his more enthralling form soon. I can say at least one positive nature of this abomination is the sculpture of its body. His creators did not shirk their responsibility carving details into his flesh, but on close inspection we do find that while the gray of his paints was an active, intentional choice, that did lead to a rather ill-looking plastic being used for his shoulders, one that looks ready to embrace the yellow taint that afflicts too many of the company's products, as though their bile and contempt for their consumers is made manifest. Truly, his most bizarre aspect is these vestigial stalks sticking from his spine, a hollow reminder of a toy long abandoned, here exclusively to make the insane wistful for the past, but in reality changing nothing for the better and only making him even more troublesome to play with. Uncharacteristically, I shall transfer to his countenance early, as the abject emptiness of his humanoid form is only barely worth consideration before being cast aside forever for his darker mode. And even here we are left bereft of hope or joy. I know not what I'm supposed to draw from this lumpen face sealed beneath a Galactus helmet. If I were to stretch an unnatural breadth, I could see some bat lineage inherited from his patriarch mold, but if I'm honest, this is just the face of some lowly regular goon. Happy to break legs, but offering little in the way of memorability. And that is just the tale of this robot mode, isn't it? A forgotten, heartless void of charisma, that sole positive quality is having feet large enough to stand even with his crushing lack of life. This form is infectiously uninspiring, capable of draining the happiness from you as you gaze across its unyieldingly listless design. Its quality is something to curse at, but I will applaud Hasbro. This does not feel as though they dug it up and threw it onto the street without care. There was an effort, and to be fair, this mode was never going to be his magnum opus. But before we get into that, let's talk about accessories. First is this disembodied slug of a thing. In reality, it is his tail, but it more resembles some trilobite or crustacean from ages past, something that would crawl into your bed and up your neck to feed at the base of your spine. It looks like an evil little tiki penguin if you stand it up, and he can hold it like a firearm despite the fact that it's more like a club, though perhaps its true calling is as a shield. And then he's got a gun! Just a regular gun! The most gun that a Transformer has ever come up with. Truly, the most scary thing about this whole video is a Cybertronian rocking up with a completely normal gat. He is going to shoot someone with a 9mm or possibly 45. This is hilarious looking and I love it. And even I wasn't a big enough nerd to know why this dude is pulling up with an FN 1910 without looking it up on the wiki. But yes, truly some nightmarish accessories. One tapping into our primordial fear of little skittering things with sharp legs. The other our fear of the modern era, which is good because there's really nothing to fear from the articulation. Here he shines more than any other figure in that dark cardboard coffin he came in spite of his dreadfully dull appearance. Head is stolen from the headmasters, so tons of expression and a neck-breaking swivel. Shoulders go, maximum elbows. Butcher knife-wielding wrists, legs are unimpeded forwards, have unnatural range out to the sides, and are mildly limited back. Normal 90 knees, and feet with a severing ankle tilt, as well as a nightmarish flex in his plantar that allows for his feet to fold in half for a massive toe and heel down. Truly an astonishing showing from this walking corpse, and a testament to the fact that old things need not lay dormant for being relics of the past, unable to surpass their modern equivalents. Then, the transformation is a rather macabre affair, as you decapitate him to stuff that in his belly as though he swallowed his own head. Outside that, it's a rather boring and confused procedure where you make him do agonizing splits and then shove his head where the sun don't shine. Then you have his little trilobite friend burrow into his tailbone. All in all, this lament configuration aspect leaves a lot to be desired. And honestly, doing it the right way is doing it the wrong way. So don't plug the beast head in, just let that ride on his crotch piece and you will be way happier with that. Then you end up with this squat mixture of Edgar from Men in Black, fused with a cobra and a gnome, and maybe a bit of Ridley Scott's Alien as inspiration. This monster mashup is exactly the thing that we've been looking for, and honestly, he kind of reminds me a lot of one of my favorites of the King of the Monsters' despicable enemies, Orga from Godzilla 2000. Give him blast effect ports in his shoulder, and maybe treat his little tail as his spaceship, and you have yourself a crossover figure. Better than that Drek that Takara came up with for that franchise recently at least, even if that one is done on the bones of a better figure. I find that the legs look far more imposing under him than out to the side, where they can windmill like a cartoon while he runs after you. Though I don't know that I would call them imposing in either format, but what does deserve that moniker are those giant pincer claws of his, looking like they are ready to crush the life out of any opponent, as though he were the inspiration for Beast Wars Rampage. He even looks like he feeds on fear. Everything that the robot mode failed to do, this succeeds at in spades. No more is he the wilting wallflower, cursed to die in obscurity. Like the werewolf, this abominable transformation has turned him into the beast the other doomed characters in the play run from, to be caught one by one and torn to pieces in bloody fashion as he pulls them apart one limb at a time. Though even still, I can't say that he's the most elegant-looking creature ever pulled from the casket. A figure so clearly Frankensteined together from several completely incompatible sources. The cute little legs with the black feeties dark as his heart that he never had before. The pot belly so full of tiny man as to make him look out of shape. The tail bracketed off his body like a piece of metal riveted to his ass, for lack of a better way to attach it. His shoulders mounted so high to his head, even when attached correctly, that it doesn't look natural. But all that is his cursed charm. A figure molded from chaos, whose only aim was to be a kitschy horror centerpiece, here to kill Cliffjumper with his cruel brethren. His robot mode was an empty husk, but his creature mode is a statement of evil, corruption, and pandemonium. His hips, still weak as his shoulders always were, he is perhaps slightly more steady on his feet than you might anticipate given his front-heavy design. Fortunately, his hands are still in an orientation to let him hold his gun, as though he weren't threatening enough before he had a ranged weapon. Orga, eat your heart out. If only you had a gun to shoot Godzilla with. Instead, he blew your head clean out from between your shoulders when you tried to pull some shit I'm amazed you thought would work. If you look at him from the top, it seems like the criminal organization Cobra might have taken their inspiration from him, though I'm sure he'd just as readily slaughter them too. The one thing I wonder about this whole mess of a monster is why there are these hinges on the fake legs hanging off his back. They are unused in the transformation and serve little purpose, though you could say that about the whole attached apparatus. He is afflicted with rogue limbs so pointless to his existence. They just clog up his body like a failing heart. Perhaps that's why his eyes have turned red. Once a caustic green, they've grown so bloodshot from pain as to blot out his vision behind a curtain of crimson. Shame, it was so charming with the goosebumpsy acid boiling from within. This shade is too similar to the rest of his face. You'd hope that they'd stand out like burning coals, but unfortunately they are dead and lifeless like his soul, or spark in this scenario. His head evokes so many primal fears of man, fears of pointed teeth, fears of snakes and lizards, fears of all things hostile and dangerous. A beast of deadly design crafted to kill, the kind of thing that haunts us in our dreams. So this beast mode, or maybe more appropriately, freak mode, is everything we dare to fear the robot would be. A janky, miserable mess, so much more memorable than the other mode. A creature of contempt and hate, and that's just how I wanted him. He is exactly what he should be, exactly what he deserved to be. Not every figure needs to be a masterpiece. Some can be a tainted thing, and that's good. But he still has articulation to talk about. Head can only look down. I don't know why he suffers from lockjaw, as there seems to be no worldly reason, other than his creator was a cruel god who wanted him and us to suffer. Arms are almost indescribable, but they can do most of what you want, with 90 elbows and opening and closing claws that you can flip the whole assembly around to switch between butcher's knife-wielding wrists and ripping off action. He is devoid of a waist like this, and legs with an inward bend and a thigh swivel that you can manipulate into giving you several more joints than they naturally wish to be. So when all is said and done, Squeezeplay's robot mode might be a bit droning, an unmitigated bore with hauntingly few factors to call pleasant, but so little to actually decry either. A gray, pulsating blob of existence, violently refusing oblivion, persisting only through hate. But he has those qualities where you want them. His ghastly alternate mode is a classic slice of sci-fi monster, with a cruel visage and that fun, spooky vibe that gives Halloween that spirit we all crave. He may not be a piece worth the pedestal crafted by the masters, but he is well worth owning, especially for the season. Even almost a decade after its death, Titan's Return still turns out figures that you'll be glad to entomb in your collection. And before we go, let's thank a channel backer. If you'd like to get on the wheel yourselves, you can join the channel memberships or the Patreon. And this time it's perfect. Wheel, sometimes you do me proud. Ghosty. With Studio Series Bumblebee Movie Optimus Prime. 2 banger Optimus Primes in a row. What can I say? This is one of the best, coolest designs that Hasbro's ever put out. An effortlessly confident and powerful robot mode, looking like he's here to kick some ass. He poses well, just accentuating the raw titanium balls of the design, and a pretty decent transformation that can sometimes fall into fiddly, especially because of the headplate popping off, but it's overall satisfying and interesting. And an alt mode that is one of the best, most realistic looking truck modes of all time. This one was an extreme winner, and another one of those must-have figures if you are someone who wants every cool version of Optimus. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.